Welcome to my channel, Starlight Sci-Fi. Story, thanks for watching, please like and subscribe. The planet Vera Prime was a jewel in the outer systems, a world of towering crystal cities and oceans that shimmered under twin suns from orbit. The planet looked peaceful, almost serene, but its surface told a different story. Here survival was a trial of strength, skill, and cunning. The first human ship to reach Vera Prime in centuries descended slowly through the violet-tinted atmosphere. Commander Elias Riker watched through the cockpit as the city of Arcanum Spire rose from jagged cliffs like a fortress built to defy the heavens. The spire's towers gleamed in sunlight reflected off layers of reinforced crystal and alloy, and streams of hovercrafts traced patterns like shooting stars across the skyline. Elias tightened his grip on the control column. His mission was clear: make contact with the Council of Vera and prove that humans were capable of diplomacy and combat prowess. Yet in the back of his mind, he knew this was more than a diplomatic mission. It was a test. One wrong step could spark an interstellar war. When the ship landed, the ramp hissed open. Elias stepped onto the crystalline floor, feeling the hum of energy conduits beneath his boots. Citizens of Arcanum Spire paused in their routines to watch the lone human. His combat suit was sleek, black with subtle reinforcement plates along the joints, designed for agility rather than intimidation. He moved with deliberate calm, aware that every observer's gaze weighed on him. At the city's center, the council hall awaited, a colossal chamber carved into living crystal, where light refracted endlessly, forming spectral rainbows across the polished floor. The council members were imposing figures, each adorned in ceremonial robes and armor that reflected their personal victories. Their elongated heads and luminous eyes gave them an almost alien grace, yet their presence carried authority without question. Commander Elias Riker, the senior counselor, spoke, his voice resonating through the hall without amplification. You seek to prove your kind capable of merit, but here merit is earned in combat, not words. Elias inclined his head. I understand. I did not come here to speak only. I came to show my people's strength and their discipline. A ripple of interest ran through the council chamber. The counselor's eyes narrowed. Very well. You shall face the Veron champion, Kalen Doran. He has never been bested in combat within the city walls. Few have survived more than a minute. Elias felt the weight of 100 stares, but he did not flinch. Kalen Doran emerged from a side gate, his armor a dark sheen with streaks of iridescent energy flowing along the plating. Each movement of the champion radiated raw power. He carried no weapon, yet his presence alone was intimidating. The counselor continued, this duel is not for death but for honor. Should you prevail, humans may remain on Vera Prime with the rights of free citizens. Should you fail, your kind shall be confined to observation posts unarmed. Elias's jaw tightened. He had trained for scenarios like this for years. His body responded instinctively as he stepped onto the dueling platform. The floor beneath his feet was adaptive, shimmering faintly, designed to test balance, strength, and precision. Kalen's gaze met his calm but unyielding. The duel began with a pulse of light and sound. Kalen struck first, moving faster than Elias expected. Each attack was precise, intended to probe weaknesses rather than kill. Elias dodged, sidestepped and blocked, but his movements were measured, conserving energy while reading the champion's rhythm. Kalen's eyes flickered with curiosity. "You do not fear me," he said, quietly, almost to himself. "I do not underestimate anyone," Ellis replied. "Fear blinds, discipline guides." Crowd and audience of thousands watched silently, their faces reflecting fascination and tension as Kalen lunged. With a burst of strength, Ellis anticipated the strike, twisting just enough to redirect the force. Kalen stumbled slightly but regained balance. Instantly, the duel became a dance of precision, each movement calculated, each reaction tested. Minutes passed and Ellis discovered something crucial. Kalen's armor, though powerful, relied heavily on automated servos. A well-timed, subtle strike could disrupt the system temporarily without injuring the wearer. Ellis adjusted his tactics, targeting the joints and connection points. Kalen's attacks grew sharper, but Ellis countered with unexpected ingenuity. He used the arena's adaptive floor to gain leverage, slipping through angles the champion hadn't accounted for. Sparks flew from the energy conduits as the two clashed, and the hall's light refracted through the crystal walls, casting surreal patterns across the combatants. At last, Kalen charged in a final strike, a blow that could have crushed a normal soldier. Elias sidestepped, placing a hand against the champion's shoulder joint and redirecting the momentum. Kalen staggered, surprised, as his own armor resisted. Ellis pressed the advantage, precise and calculated, guiding Kalen toward the platform's edge. The duel ended not with a fatal strike, but with a gesture of mastery. Kalen knelt briefly, acknowledging Elias' skill. The hall erupted in a mixture of applause and astonished murmurs. The counselor stepped forward. "Humans are worthy," he said. "You have earned a place among us, Commander Riker. Your people may stay." Ellis allowed himself a small, victorious smile, but inside he knew this was only the beginning. Winning the duel earned respect, yes, but maintaining it would require far more than skill. Above the city, the twin sons of Vera Prime dipped toward the horizon, casting long, fractured shadows over the crystalline towers. The planet was beautiful, but beautiful did not mean safe. Ellis had proven humanity's potential, but the challenges of Vera Prime were only beginning to unfold. And somewhere in the shadows beyond the council chamber, forces were already stirring, waiting for the human who had dared to defy the legend of Kalen Doran. The twin sons of Vera Prime sank below the horizon, painting the crystalline towers in molten gold and violet shadows. The city of Arcanum Spire gleamed like a jewel, but within its shining walls unease simmered. Commander Elias Riker had proven humanity's worth in combat, but respect was fragile in a world built on tradition, power, and fear. He walked through the council chamber once more, escorted by silent Veron guards whose luminous eyes betrayed curiosity, not suspicion. Kalen Doran watched from the platform, armor now stripped of its ceremonial glow, his expression unreadable. Ellis did not flinch. In that moment, he knew that the duel had been only the first test. True challenges were invisible. A sharp vibration through the floor alerted Ellis to movement elsewhere. From the shadows of the council hall, a figure stepped forward, a young Veron noble, barely more than a student in the ways of combat, but with eyes bright and calculating. "You may have bested Kalen," the noble said, voice clear and defiant but not. All of us welcome human interference. The outer districts of Arcanum Spire are restless, they resent the council's favor toward outsiders. Elia studied him carefully. Then I must earn their trust as I have earned Kaelin's respect. The noble's eyes narrowed. Trust is fragile, human. Sometimes it must be demanded. Before Elis could respond, the floor shivered under a pulse of energy. The city's protective shields along the cliffs had detected movement, massive hovercrafts approaching from the northern ravines. Rebel forces long exiled by the council were returning, armed with weapons and technology designed to bypass the city's defenses. The council erupted into action. Kaelin moved to intercept the threat, his armor glowing once more, but Elia stepped forward. Let me lead this, he said. I have experience with asymmetric tactics. Let me show you what humans can do. The council hesitated, but Kaelin gave a slight nod. It was all the approval Elis needed. He sprinted to the eastern gate, where hovercrafts were already descending into the city's lower terraces. Citizens screamed and scattered, and the rebels began to breach defensive perimeters. Elis activated his suit's combat systems. Reinforced fibers traced along his muscles, enhancing speed and precision. Unlike Kaelin, whose strength was overwhelming, Elis relied on agility, strategy, and timing. Each movement was calculated, each step designed to exploit weaknesses in the enemy's formation. Rebels charged, their energy weapons flaring. Elis didn't attack immediately. Instead, he led them through narrow corridors, forcing them to bunch together. Then with a precise strike, he triggered the city's adaptive floor panels, sending localized pulses that threw the attackers off balance. Plasma blasts missed their targets as the rebels stumbled, unsure of the terrain. Kaelin joined the fight, his raw power cutting through the intruders with brutal efficiency. Yet Elis noticed the difference in their approach. Kaelin destroyed, Elis controlled. He redirected enemies into traps, disarmed them, and neutralized threats without unnecessary violence. Above the chaos, the twin suns cast long shadows through broken panels of crystal walls. The rebels had underestimated the humans' adaptability. Citizens began to watch from safer platforms, all spreading through the crowd. Here was a human not only surviving, but shaping the battlefield, turning chaos into order. Hours passed, though time seemed distorted in the heat of combat. Elis and Kaelin fought side by side, an unlikely pair, one relying on instinct and strength, the other on cunning and precision. Slowly the rebel forces began to falter, their formation collapsing under the coordinated counterattacks. Finally, Elis confronted the rebel leader. The figure wore armor of dark alloy, energy surging along the surface. The leader's eyes widened as Elis approached. I am Commander Riker, he said calmly. You may have strength, but you lack discipline. You are alone against many, and even your weapons cannot overcome strategy. The rebel lunged, weapon raised. Elia sidestepped, using the floor's subtle gravity fluctuations to redirect momentum. The leader crashed into the wall with a force that echoed through the hall. Elis extended a hand, helping him up. Yield, he said. You do not need to die today. There is honor in restraint. The rebel hesitated, then dropped his weapon. Around them, remaining insurgents surrendered. The City fell silent except for the hum of energy conduits and the distant roar of the twin suns over the horizon. Kalen approached Ella's, his expression softened. You have done more than win. Duel, he said, you have saved this city, and in doing so earned respect not through strength alone but through discipline and intelligence. Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought. Ella's nodded. Strength alone is nothing without control and purpose. That is what we bring. The council convened again in the main hall, this time not in judgment but in consultation. Ella's explained human approaches to combat, diplomacy, and strategy. Counselors listened intently, fascinated by the differences and similarities. They began to see humans not as intruders, but as potential allies and teachers. In the weeks that followed, Vera Prime underwent subtle transformations. Defensive protocols were improved. Tactical training incorporated human methods, and citizens began to view Commander Ella's recur as both a hero and a mentor. Kalen remained a steadfast ally, teaching Ella's the ways of Veron combat while learning from human precision and ingenuity in return. Yet Ella's never forgot the lesson of the duel and the rebellion. Respect was earned, not granted, and survival required more than strength. It required courage, creativity, and a willingness to face unknown challenges without fear. One evening, as the twin suns set again, Elia stood atop the crystalline towers, looking out over the city below. Citizens moved freely, unafraid, their eyes bright with hope. Rebels had been subdued, but the lessons lingered. The city would remain vigilant, adaptive, and alive. Kalen joined him, leaning against the crystal railing. You've changed this world, human, he said. But change is never complete. There will always be those who test it. Ella's smiled faintly. Then we meet each test as it comes. Together we make sure humanity and Vera Prime thrives. Twin suns disappeared beneath the horizon, leaving the city bathed in the soft glow of twilight, and for the first time in centuries, Arcanum Spire felt united. Human ingenuity and Veron tradition had formed a bond, a partnership that promised hope, strength, and understanding for generations to come. As night fell, the stars of Vera Prime shone brighter than ever, mirrored in the eyes of those who dared to dream and to act. Ella's knew that the future was uncertain, full of danger, and yet full of possibility. He had come as a soldier, proven as a warrior, and remained as a teacher. Humanity had survived its first challenge on Vera Prime, and this was only the beginning. Months passed on Vera Prime and Arcanum Spire had begun to change in ways no one had expected. Commander Elias Riker was no longer a visitor or a curiosity. He had become a symbol. Citizens looked to him not just as a warrior, but as a teacher and protector. His methods, discipline, foresight, and calm precision had transformed the city's defenses and inspired a new generation of soldiers and strategists. Kalen Doran stood beside Ella's atop the highest crystalline spire, watching the twin suns rise. You've done more than survive, Kalen said quietly. You've reshaped this world. Ella's allowed himself a small smile. We've reshaped it together. Humanity has a place here now, not just as allies, but as equals. Below, the citizens moved with purpose. Streets that had once been scenes of panic now thrummed with activity. Young Vandans trained alongside human Cadets blending raw strength with calculated skill, the rebels who had challenged the city now served under council guidance, their hostility replaced by respect and understanding. Yet Ellis knew the work was not done. Arcanum Spire had survived one threat. But the universe was vast, unpredictable and often cruel. His mind stayed sharp, analyzing potential, vulnerabilities, thinking through scenarios no one else dared imagine. That was the advantage humans brought. Adaptability. The council summoned him once more. Ilias Riker, the senior counselor, said, his voice steady, "You have changed not only our city, but the very way we see your species. Your victories were not brute force, but strategy and integrity. That is the legacy you leave behind." Ilias nodded. "I came to prove humanity could survive here. What you see now is proof that survival alone is not enough. To endure, you must understand, adapt, and lead with honor." Kalen stepped forward, and now the people of Vera Prime have learned it. They will carry it forward. As the twin suns climbed higher, casting prisms across the spires, Ellis felt a quiet satisfaction. This planet, once skeptical and resistant, now saw humans as a source of guidance and strength. Their culture, refined over centuries, had embraced lessons of resilience and precision, and humanity had adapted not by dominating but by elevating those around them. From the observation spire, Ellis watched a group of young Veyron cadets practice with human mentors. Laughter and concentration mixed in the air. Here was proof that cooperation could overcome fear, that courage, combined with intelligence, could reshape a society. Humanity's legacy had taken root. Kalen placed a hand on Ilias' shoulder. "This is your victory," he said. "Not the duel, not the battles, but this. You've changed hearts and minds." Ilias looked down at the city, gleaming in the twin sunlight, alive with hope and determination. "Victory is not mine alone," he said. "It belongs to everyone willing to act with honor and courage." As the horizon flared with the first light of day, Ilias Riker realized the truth of the human spirit. It was not in strength, size, or weapons. It was in adaptability, courage, and the will to rise above challenges. Vera Prime had survived its first human contact, and humanity had not only survived, it had thrived. The twin suns rose fully, casting gold and violet light over the city. Ellis and Kalen watched silently, knowing that the future was vast, uncertain but bright. Together, human and Veyron had forged a new chapter. Together they would face whatever the universe dared to throw at them, and in that unity and that courage, humanity's true legacy had begun. End of story.